All right, Outliers, Niiamah Ashong here. And today we have a fantastic panel of Outliers who are going to be playing their game and sharing it with you here today. I cannot wait to jump into it. So let's just go on in. What I'd like to do is introduce you to Adreanna, Fiona, Van, Maureen, and Danielle. And we'll do that one at a time. Adreanna, why don't you get us kicked off here? Help us get to know you and the game that you're playing.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Adriana. I am a clinical hypnotherapist, and my business is Loving My Wild. So, what I do is I work with anxious millennials who are trying to figure out where their anxiety is coming from. And then I use subconscious reprogramming and hypnosis to rewire their subconscious mind. So that way they get their subconscious on board with their conscious goals. And while that's the work that I do with people, the process that I really love and my mission in all of this is getting people to a place of self love and loving their uniqueness and their quirks. And I find that through the process of healing their anxiety, that's the added benefit that my clients don't even realize that was on the other side. So it's what lights me up. I could talk about it all day long. And so I'm super excited to be here and connect with other people who are also aligned with sharing their mission and kind of just gathering, our own stories and just kind of bouncing ideas and our stories off of each other.
Well, it's great to have you here. We're going to have a great time with all of that. Fiona, let's come to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Fiona. I am the co-host of the Mystically Inclined podcast. You're going to meet my other host who is here on the call as well, Maureen. So we'll get to her later. But our show is all about helping listeners find their authentic truth and speak their authentic voices. So we interview a variety of different guests. We have a lot of spiritual content, a lot of entrepreneurs. We cover a bunch of different topics that just help people align to who they truly are and help, people just share more authentically, and become more in tune with who they are. So that's pretty much what we do. I'm excited to be here today and to bounce around ideas and topics with everybody here on the call. And that's it.
Oh, we're glad to have you here. And Maureen, why don't we come to you? That way we can get everything all together here. Well, I would like to say hello.
All right, I'm Maureen, co-host of Mystically Inclined podcast, and I would just add that in addition to helping our listeners kind of find their authentic self, our sneaky mission was actually to find it for ourselves. So just to
I'm
be
snapping my fingers on that one. Yes.
straightforward with that, like we do it because it's fun and we get inspired and we feel good learning about different people's paths.
That's awesome. I really I love that component here around like let's actually just do the work by doing the work and continuing to expand it along the way. I'm excited to learn to see what I learned from all of you through this as I go down the journey here. Awesome. Why don't we come to Van? Van, tell us a little bit about you and the game that you're playing right now.
Yeah, for sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Van. I have a podcast called the Manvisory Podcast. It's a podcast that's geared towards men's mental health. It was developed actually through my own personal challenges and struggles. And I was hoping that by allowing other people to listen to it, that they'd be able to resonate it with as well. And so my podcast and my mission with Manvisory really is to bridge conversations. And that's the most important thing when it comes to men's mental health. And that's what we're trying to do here today.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Glad to have you here, Van. And Danielle, can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, I am Danielle Parker, and I have been a hairstylist for 19 years, and I'm also a salon owner, and my business is called Lotus Beauty Collective. So I started a podcast, and I'm calling it the Lotus Collective. Besides doing hair, and I'm passionate about that, I've also really passionate about educating, empowering, and encouraging other women and helping them grow their confidence and all of those kinds of things, being their authentic self. Sounds like we have a theme on this call today.
Yes, indeed.
I like it. So that's pretty much what I'm passionate about.
All right. Well, it's great to have you here. Great to have all of you here. And I'm actually going to start off with this question here. So we're Outliers Edge. And I want to maybe be able to see a bit of all of your outliers in focus and bring it up to see how have you used that to build your business, build your impact, build your brand. Maureen, you let us in on the not so secret of, as much as you're helping others, you're also doing this for yourself. So I'm very curious, how are each of you using your platform, whether it's your podcast, your business, or beyond, to bring out more of your outlier, and what components do you see of yourself coming through? And I'll leave this open. Does anyone want to take it as to start us off, and then we'll kind of just jump around from there?
I can start if nobody
Yeah.
wants to start. Yeah.
Please, Fiona.
For me, I've always had kind of a fear of self-expression. So having the podcast with a friend has really helped me to kind of tap into that. I'm allowed to say whatever I need to say, however I need to say it, in a safe space that feels very just more comfortable than if I were just talking to in a microphone by myself. So that has really kind of helped me to push my edges a little bit. And then also interviewing people who are living in a way that I view as brave, has helped me to kind of be more brave and more fearless in my own, business and life and things like that.
It's awesome. And I love how, like, you started off this thing. You're like, I've always been afraid of self-expression, but I'll go ahead and begin this here. So like, I like evidence in action of how things go there. Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
I can go.
Danielle.
I feel like my podcast is almost an extension of me doing hair behind the chair, because I hear some really amazing, inspiring stories from clients or friends. And I always felt empowered and encouraged by it. And so I wanted to bring those stories to other people. And again, it's kind of just everything has morphed into this passion of empowering people and sharing stories and being their authentic self. So I feel like I get to do that a little bit more on my podcast than I necessarily do behind the chair. But that's what I'm trying to do. And I love that.
Feeling you there. Thanks, Danielle. Who else? Anyone else have any thoughts around how they're able to leverage their outlier, Adriana?
Yeah, I can go. Kind of piggybacking on similar themes. I've always been really scared to step into my power, and it was always easier for me to play small and to kind of take a back seat and let everyone else shine, even though I felt like I had something to shine. And so I think with my business, it's given me this platform to truly step into who I am and show up in the ways that I want to show up. And it's been so challenging in that way also, because you really do have to put yourself out there in business. And I've had to just really, really, really like pull back on certain things or challenge myself in certain ways to really be the person that I want to be. And then kind of simultaneously, it forces me to live in alignment with what I'm trying to teach and preach to other people. And it keeps me accountable to, you know, live in that way and embody the practices that I'm sharing and I'm trying to teach and stuff. And so in that way, it's also benefited me because it's kept me aligned on, my own value system. So it's kind of had a dual purpose for me. And it's been really cool to just feel myself stepping into who I'm meant to be through it all.
Yeah, I appreciate it. There's a reason why I invite like people who have podcasts, because I recognize the amount of work that's necessary. Whether you make one episode, there's like, or a whole lot, there's still a huge learning curve, and you have to show up like you have to decide like, I want to lead in some way. I want to lead in some way, shape, or form. And I hear this common thread here of your own leadership coming through with your platform. So really appreciate it. Van, I see you here. What would you like to contribute?
Yeah, actually, very much like everyone else, the platform for me is a growth mechanism for myself. But actually, my day job, I'm a leader. I'm a director in information technology. So I've led large size teams, and being able to express my emotions and understand, a lot of my childhood and obviously adult life experiences actually has really allowed me to really understand how to be a servant leader to all of the people that report to me and that I work with as well, right? So it's become actually a really big tool that I've taken in my personal life that actually transformed as part of my professional life as well. A really good indication of this is actually right now, I'm working with quite a few senior executives to create a men's mental health group within our organization, right? And something that's never existed before, something that not a lot of people wanted to put a lot of visibility on, but by kind of living and breathing, what I talk about through my podcast, I've been able to apply that professionally, which has been fantastic.
Yeah, I love this. I love the alignment, that the component of things continuing to grow and expand throughout there, with being in alignment. All right, I want to keep going on and seeing. I'm very, very curious about how each of you are like bringing this outlier into your business and like how you're setting things up and such. And I also want to I'm thinking about the outliers out here that are listening to this. Part of the reason I asked about about what your outlier is just to keep growing the space of what can be. And a number of us are, we recognize we're outliers, we're doing different things, but then there's, I almost call it like it's like new levels that we need to reach. Adriana, you said I was playing small. Well, I find is that like you probably weren't playing small, but you're probably playing medium, and that is actually like a lot it ends up being a lot harder to actually recognize. So I'm curious for you all, when you first made the moves, or maybe not, it may not even be related to this, but tell me a time where you stood for who you were. You stood you were, I'll use the word authentic or unapologetic, but like you really were just standing in your own power. And tell me about a time where that that didn't work or work for you. Maureen, I see you right there, please.
Well, one thing I was thinking about as we've kind of developed our show is that we do the interview portion of it, but then we also have a portion where Fiona and I just kind of discuss what's happening in our lives, the practical applications from whatever this expert or guru, whoever has told us about. And when we were starting, we were kind of like, we're just talking to ourselves. So is this, does anybody care? And the feedback that we've gotten from the show is that it turns out that our reflecting part is one of people's favorite parts. And so that's been cool to see, like when we're just kind of talking like, yeah, this is what my kid did the other night. And, this is what we think about anxiety or whatever the topic may be, that seemed to resonate with people. That was pretty validating. Like, yeah, okay, well, we'll keep this part in. It's actually some of people's favorite part of our show.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's making me think about like the unexpected feedback that comes along the way,
right?
As you keep showing up there. Awesome. Danielle, please.
I really feel like starting my podcast has pushed me to be more authentic and vulnerable. I'm always talking about that, but it's definitely pushed me. I share some of my own story on there, and then trying to get other people to be a little bit more vulnerable as well without being scared. So for me, it's just kind of pushing me in the next level of trying to be a better leader. I'm trying to hire people for my business. I want to create a business and a hair salon that's different from other places where you go and you feel, again, educated, empowered, encouraged, not like we just gossiped and we just talk shit about everybody and whatever. So I want to just bring a deeper level of consciousness, I guess, to my own self, my clients, my podcast, all of that kind of stuff. I feel like it's working. People are talking to me and telling me they like the things that I share, and that's kind of inspiring them to do some of the same things. So I think that's pretty fun.
Yeah, I love that element of like kind of like the context switching. Because what I get is like when they're in your chair, you're like, hey, things don't have to be like how we think it is. And in this space here, we're going to create a different kind of conversation, an empowering conversation, an uplifting conversation, and let's keep growing from there. That's awesome. I just got a haircut the other day. It had been way too long since I had gotten one, and I think I've heard of the relationships that hairstylists get to have with their clients, and I think about the importance of that. So I'm really glad to hear that you're continuing to step into that and give people more of an opportunity, even when they're not sitting down with you, to experience that kind of benefit. That's awesome. Awesome. Anyone else have anything? Yeah, Adriana, please.
I think being in business, I have to intentionally choose to show up authentically every single day. because I don't know if you guys can relate to this, but it's so easy to get swept into the shoulds with business, or the do this to be more successful, or try this. And there's a lot of information out there about strategy and marketing and all of this stuff, and do this and that and this. And I can get so easily swept into the what I should be doing and lose sight of me and what I bring to the table and my authenticity and how I'm showing up. And then it becomes generic, right? It's not about what I bring anymore. It's not about what I'm offering. And so I have had moments where I've kind of gotten swept into that, and I've lost me in the process, and it falls flat. My marketing falls flat. My message falls flat. And if I could feel it, I feel that energy shift in me. So when I can kind of course correct and realign and come back to my authenticity, I remember that I'm going to make the most change when I show up as myself, wholeheartedly, authentically, use the business principles as principles, but bring my own flavor to it. And it's a conscious decision every single day to be like, how can I show up as me wholeheartedly in each thing that I do? Knowing that, yes, it does have a purpose to build my business, but I want to build my business through me, through my authenticity. So it's a conscious decision every day.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought this in. I'm going to ask you a follow up on this, Adriana, and then I'd like to like bring this up, like open this up for everyone else too. You talked about like losing yourself in the business and having to like make these conscious decisions, and you talked about like bringing yourself back. And I think that's a really important thing. Like candidly, I was so much more mission focused when I first started this year, and then I started looking and seeing like I'm not getting enough money to continue doing the mission, and then I had to go figure out like how does the business side of things really work, and then I'm like, but what happened to my mission? Is it here? Is it there? Who am I? Like what? How am I playing that out? So I like personally, I'm interested, and I know that outliers out here may also be trying to navigate that. So the question on hand here is like. After you've lost yourself, after you're finding like that you've lost like that kind of central pillar of you and what you're doing, how did you actually go back and bring yourself back in? And we'll start with you, Adriana, if you're cool with that.
Well, I think first it's the awareness, right? Having the awareness of who I am and what it feels like when I'm showing up authentically, and then having the awareness of what it feels like when I'm not showing up authentically, because then I can gauge, right? I can gauge when I'm feeling off course and what it feels like to get back onto course. So that's the first step. And then really it's taking a step back. Once I feel that energetic shift, it's taking the step back and realizing, okay, is there a fear here? Usually it's very fear-based. I'm like fearing the money's not going to come in, or fearing that people aren't going to like me, or I'm not going to, I don't connect with enough people, whatever it is. It tends, fear of failure is a big one too. So I kind of take a step back and I try to understand what's at play here. And when I can understand or uncover what's at play, then it allows me to figure out what I need to do to course correct. And it's usually doing something that feels really good to me outside of the business. And so whether that's connecting with friends, going for a walk, playing with my dogs, like whatever it is that brings back that light inside of me. And then I just try to create from that place again. And then that tends to help me realign. So it's kind of a multi-part thing. You need to have the awareness, and then you need to have, I think, those things that work for you to realign. And it's going to be different for each person. For me, it's finding my joy again outside of work and then bringing that joy into the work.
Ooh, you said joy. I love that. Like, let's yeah, I'd love to get more people in. And what I'll do here is that rather than directing you, like unmute yourself, just bring it into the space, and then when it's time to move on to the next question, we'll naturally know. That being said, Van, I'm seeing you leaning in, so pick us off.
For sure. I mean, I'm fully resonating with everything that Adriana is talking about. Like, oftentimes as a leader, you know, you can kind of fall off the beaten path very easily as you kind of are trying to figure out, well, what do you need to do to get your next promotion, or how do you increase your business and things like that. And you start moving away from the why, right? The mission, why are you doing this, and what makes you you, right? And oftentimes that's where, I found myself losing myself in the same way as Adreanna. It's like it's just going back to your roots, going back to the very simple things in your life that make you happy. And once you kind of start doing those things, whether it's drawing or reading or anything like that, sometimes it's just like being out in nature by yourself. You start getting all of these ideas and these strategies and this momentum to start moving forward again. And that's all it took, right? It's really separating yourself from your business or from your goals just to get back to them, right? And so I really resonate with that a lot.
I agree, Van and Adriana. Like Maureen and I have talked about this a lot, and we've tried so many different things within the podcast and the business and all of that. And we're like, okay, sometimes you just have to scale it back. What do we actually have energy for? What is actually fun? What could we just keep doing that doesn't feel like we're working? Let's keep that going. And I feel like Mo, you jump in here if you have anything to add. But since we've been doing that, I feel like the podcast has been much more effortless. We're getting people reaching out to us to be on the show. We're having opportunities like this, like just the different things that we weren't seeing beforehand. I mean, obviously, part of it is just the consistency and showing up. We're about, I'd say, a year and a half or so in. But still, it's that idea of if we don't have energy for it, why are we forcing it? Back to what Adriana said, it's like you're seeing people do things and you're hearing all this advice, and it's all great advice. It's definitely worked for people, and it can work. But like if you don't have the energy for it, now what are you creating? You're creating from a place of, shoulds instead of a place of joy and excitement, which translates,
And it's been interesting to see when we have played around with it. Like we were, releasing weekly episodes, and we're like, it's summertime. We're really busy and tired. Like maybe we just do every other week. And we're like, can we? Yeah, we can do whatever we want. Like, okay, let's try that. And for sure, like right away, all the pressure of trying to edit or like book the next guest, like all the stuff that takes away some of the fun was gone. We're just like, oh yeah, this is such an easy
Great.
pace. Great.
I think we're staying here. All right, cool. Move on.
Yeah, I love that. Like we can do whatever we want. Like I see like some people, like everyone's nodded with that. It's like this element of it, like where it's like, what's the right way? What's the best way? What's all this stuff? And then eventually you're like, oh wait, like we're making this up. Like we can do however we want here.
And like experimenting, not being afraid to scrap something if you're not having fun doing it anymore. Like the reason we're all in our own business is so that we can create it however we want it to be. So like, why would we just continue doing stuff we don't want to do? If that was the point, we'd just, continue on our 9 to 5s and be miserable.
Yeah. And
Right.
on
And
a,
like the whole, yeah.
oh,
Go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead.
I was just going to say the whole essence of living in alignment that we keep hearing from people is like learning to honor yourself. So you can't do that if you're just going by the prescriptive method of how to do something. So it does really force you to actually like think about how this feels and what you're getting out of it, what you're putting into it. So
Yeah, and what I was going to add was that, all of these business principles and things that we learn about how to do business, how to market, they have a purpose, right? They're there to educate us, and they do work. And so from a practical level, what I've learned to do, or still learning really to do, is how do I know the principles and just allow them to be, and then show my own creative way of working with those principles, right? Like, how to market, how to you do social media. Well, it doesn't have to be X, Y, and Z way. How do I take those principles and kind of embed them in me and then show up how I want through those principles? You know what I mean? So it really is such a creative process of like, well, I know that this sort of strategy works, but how can I put my own flavor into it? How do I make it my own? And that's been really helpful from a practical level of like, growing my business in a way that I know is based on like true business principles that are very effective, but doing it in a way that feels authentic to me and for my business and my brand.
I was gonna say, I think it's funny that we all seem to have some very similar themes. I love it, but I've been doing hair for so long that I've been burnt out and like many times and come back, I would say. I think that COVID was a huge turning point for me in my own mental health. And I had a lot of anxiety and some depression, all kinds of stuff. So once I started to really go to therapy and learn how to be alone and be in my own space and listen to myself and reflect more on my own stuff, I think that really kind of pushed me a little bit past the phase of burnout and having to go back and doing things that I liked again, like going to work out again. I'm a dancer, so I had kind of got burnt out of dancing as well, but now I'm back in the dancing scene again. I do a lot of salsa dancing, and so I'm pushing myself to do other kinds of dancing again. Like my theme in life is to do the things that scare you and just do them scared. So that's my goal in life.
Powerful theme. Yeah. I'm appreciative of you all. I'm taking this all in here. Van, I find myself really curious too, because you have you're not an entrepreneur, but you're working inside of a larger organization. And I'm really curious about like that component there, because I have a lot of outliers who are listening to this who are very successful in the roles that they're in right now. They're leaders in that role, and some of them want to go off and do their own thing. Some of them want to stay inside of their organization, keep building their leadership as well as build their like thought leadership. So I'm really curious about like how all this is playing out for you and how you leverage that in the work you do.
Yeah, for sure. Much like everyone else and what we originally just talked about, I found as through, my last almost 14 years of being in a leadership role, every time that I started listening and reading about what other people were doing and trying to take all of that and do that, I always failed at it. People were like, "Oh, you got to be more aggressive, Van. You got to talk louder than the other person in the room. You got to do all of these things." And I tried to do that, and as I was doing it, I knew I was losing myself, because that's just not who I am. That's just not the kind of person I am and the personality that I have. And then after a while, I just reset and I started just going back to who I am. And for me, it's how can I help other people? It's not about helping me. I've built a really good career as a leader in helping others. And by helping others, when it came time to helping myself, I had the support of the entire organization, right? And that became really, really important. I think that can apply if someone wants to get out of the corporate life and start their own business, right? The same principles still apply, right? If you want people to follow you, resonate with you and work with you, you have to be super authentic, and you have to be you. You have to be the original you, not one that was created and you see online all the time with these crazy popular influencers. It's really interesting, because it's such a large facade that we all buy into, because we see how they live and we want to be like that, but we don't see what happens when the camera's off, right? We don't see what happens when they're at home by themselves. You don't get that authenticity from them. And that's what's going to separate you and allow you to really grow, whether within a corporate setting or within an entrepreneurial setting as well.
Yeah, you just dropped "be the original you." I thought that was like really great. I do this, y'all, just so you know, when I hear what someone says that is actually like different from what other people say, I'll point it out. I'm like, please go do something with that. That's really cool. Yeah, I appreciate each of you and your thoughts on it. Anyone else want to say anything on this before I take the conversation a little bit differently? All right, cool. So we're looking that we're feeling pretty complete on that. So here's something that I was curious about, because I want to play into the components of like, it's almost like the idea in my mind is like when you hit record, right? And so in this, it might be hitting record, might be standing on stage, might be creating a course, might be like actually getting in with a client, whatever it is. There's a way that we might think we would be in the way that we show up, and then there's like once the dot starts blinking, where do we go? And so I'm really curious about y'all, as you like when you think back to like how you stepped into it originally. I want to start off there. I'll do like probably two parts. The first one would be like when you stepped into originally, how did you like really start to like get into your own? Because I think almost to your point, Van, it's like we come on and we just imagine like we're like, this is how this person does it. I've listened to every single thing that they've said. Why can't I show up like them? And I must not be good at this. And then I quit. And I really would love for Outliers to keep expanding their leadership out there and showing what else is possible by just being able to stay in the game. I think it's like literally that's it. Just be here. So if you're open to it, I'd love to see when you were first starting, what were some of the things where if you were wrestling with anything, what were the things that kept you going? And then I'll bring it again to like now, because you're still climbing heights, you're still climbing mountains, you're still pushing yourselves and experimenting with things. So we'll take it from the beginning. And then if you have anything else to add about what you're doing right now, we'll go from there. Anyone want to start us off?
I can set us off.
All right. This is me playing it, by the way, just so you know. I'm like, how is this gonna play on the replay?
For sure.
Oh, but thank you, man.
It's really interesting. For me, I think it really comes down to goal setting. I think oftentimes before we start recording and we start on our journeys and trying to build businesses and trying to move up the corporate ladder, we are thinking 10 years ahead. We're thinking we're going to have celebrity guests on our podcast. We're going to be, bumping elbows with like the most senior executives in an organization. Like that's where we're looking, and it's great to look that way. But it also sets yourself up for failure too, because if you don't get to that point really quickly, you lose the momentum, you lose the motivation, you lose the steam to kind of progress forward in that, right? So over the years, through my leadership journey and even, with my podcast is, it's like, what is the simplest measurement that you can come up with? And for me, when it comes to a podcast, it's hitting record, like literally hitting record, getting on that microphone and doing your intro, paragraph speech, like that's the very first step, right? In the corporate world, it's like, your goal is, hey, how many people can you help today, right? Or this week or this month, right? But not trying to stretch that too far. And it's not to say don't dream big and don't live large. It's not about that. It's actually just breaking up all of that into smaller pieces that you can digest. And once you've chewed through it and you're good and it's gone through you, then you get to the next thing, right? And I think that if Outliers are following that kind of process, that they're going to get so much more out of it so much quicker than just trying to go after that like 10-year goal right away.
That's a really great point, Van. Something that Maureen and I have a couple things to say. So one of the things is we had to kind of take a moment because, to your point, we made these big lofty goals and then we were disappointed because we're like, dang, we didn't hit these big lofty goals. So then we kind of peeled it back and we said, well, what goals did we hit? We produced X amount of episodes this year. That's a win. We, connected with this many people. That's a win. But even getting to that point, I think starting off at zero sometimes is the fun part because there is no pressure. You can mess up, you can make mistakes, you can scrap the episode and start over. I think, I don't remember how many episodes did we record, Maureen, before we actually published one.
Our intro.
We were like, oh dang, the microphones are too close. Oh dang, we did this. Okay, rework that. But that's kind of a part of the fun creative process is throwing the spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks and seeing what falls to the floor and kind of keeping on going. So to your point, it's kind of great to have those big goals and they can absolutely happen, but not holding yourself to them or putting a timeline on them. Like, hey, if those things happen in 5 years or in 1 year or in 10 years, like it still happened, but there's also a lot of awesome things that happened along the way and to not lose sight of that.
So cool.
Yeah,
that
I think
you
we
say
had
that.
simultaneous fears that we would either not get enough listeners or that we would get so many. We'd be like, oh my God, what if a lot of people listen to this?
Do you know what
crazy.
I said on last week's episode? I hope nobody listens to this.
Right.
We don't talk about like the fear of success often enough, but like that's what I'm hearing here. There's a fear of failure, but right amongst is like, well, what if this actually picks off? I don't know how to be viral. What like
right.
I don't know if I want that many eyes on me.
Danielle, you were going to say something.
I don't know. I forgot what I was gonna say. But for me, it's just putting one foot in front of the other and continuing to do the things that I have in my mind. Like Van was talking about setting goals. I set goals for myself every year. I don't do the new resolution. I don't do that. I'm gonna lose 5 pounds. I'm gonna work out every day thing. That's so dumb. And but I'm like, these are the goals and things that I want to push myself to do this year. And then at the end of the year, I tend to look back and see what I did. And most of the time, I'm like, oh, I actually did a lot of the stuff on there. And if I didn't accomplish something, I'm like, all right, well, do I still want to do that? Because I can choose to go forward or I can choose to stop. It's my life. I can do whatever I want. Right. Is this bringing me joy anymore? Is it something I want to do? And then I'm like, all right, well, let's go another step. So without any risk, obviously there's no reward. So it's just kind of like, how much do I want to grow right now? And sometimes we need a break. Sometimes we need a break from growth and putting ourselves out there. And then sometimes it's just like, gotta go for it now.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback on some of the things they were talking about. One big like moment for me was realizing that it's okay to be a beginner. Like I have struggled with such big perfectionism, like such a deep rooted perfectionism my whole life. Like I just kind of like what Van was saying, I just want the finished product. I just want to be successful. I want to be there already. I want to skip all of the steps so I can prove to myself I can do it. And that's just not how it works. You don't just wake up one day and you're successful, right? You become successful by each and every baby step that you take on your way there. And I had to really like have that moment where I had to admit to myself I'm a beginner. And that was so scary for me to admit. I'm a beginner and I don't know what I'm doing. I couldn't let myself get there for so long because I wanted so badly to just prove that I can do it. And I was falling flat on my face because I wasn't allowing myself to not know things. I wasn't allowing myself to be bad at certain things and evolve and grow. And that really set me back a lot. And once I realized, like, whew, okay, I actually don't know what I'm doing and I'm going to figure it out, but I don't know right now. And that's when I started to really appreciate the baby steps and really appreciate where I am here and now, because I know one day I'll be looking back on this moment and be like, oh man, you had no idea. And I know that I'm going to fall in love with those little baby moments when I look back. So I'm here now in the baby moments. I might as well appreciate them.
Mhm.
I have a 1.5-year-old who recently learned how to walk a couple months ago, and I hear people say baby steps. I'm like, those are the most treacherous steps you take. Like you just don't stand up. Like you are guaranteed to fall. So I love that there, and I'm really really grateful for each of you. I think this is a good time right now for us to start bringing this conversation to a close. And what I like to do to bring us to wrap things up is that you all have shared what I call outsights. You shared like what you've learned inside and bringing it out on behalf of Outliers, and really appreciate that. We'll wrap up here with your insights, right? So my invitation here is for you to share something that you gained as a result of this conversation. And if you didn't learn anything, there's nothing you're taking away, that's fine too. Just say that, and like no harm, no foul. Like we're good with it. But I want to bring us to conclusion here through the space of insight. Can we start with you, Van? I'll actually call each person individually this time around. Let's take like 30 seconds or so. Just let us know. So Van, how about you? What insight did you get from this conversation?
Yeah, for sure. Actually, during this call, I learned a lot. I learned that all of the things that I've personally struggled with, even starting my podcast, keeping up with my podcast, I'm just hearing on the call now, everyone experiences the same thing. And that, much like Adrianna was just saying, I always want a really polished product, and that's probably has hindered me from uploading more podcast episodes, right? I think Fiona and Maureen also talked about that, and I've actually felt very inspired now to be like, you know what, let's just get something out there now, and it's okay if you hear some, the fan in the background or the mic's too close, like let's just try it, right? And you know that there's a lot of people out in the world right now kind of on the same journey, and I think that's really cool too. Very insightful, really great conversation. Again, I'm really appreciative of everything I've learned from everyone on the call today.
Thank you, Van. Thank you for being here. Maureen, why don't we go to you?
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said, man. I think it's easy to look at the podcasting world and Instagram or whatever and just be like, man, everybody's just killing it and we're tired and we're trying to find a guest. And I don't know, it's encouraging to hear that no, everybody's trying to figure it out and make it work. So the more you show up, the better.
Thanks for that. Adrianna, how about you?
I think I realized that I'm not alone. I'm not alone in my fears in business. I'm not alone in the challenges and the day-to-day struggles, because hearing you guys talk about the same exact struggles I've gone through and I currently am going through, and I know I'm going to go through, I'm like, wow, it's not me. It's just a part of the
Right.
process. And that knowing that is so encouraging and so empowering, because it doesn't stop me, right? It can stop me, but knowing that it's just a part of the process because you guys are going through it too, I know to just hold space for it and just keep going. So, you know, this world can be really lonely, as we've said, but it was just so great hearing from all of you guys, and it felt a little less lonely.
Thank you there. Why don't we go with Danielle, and then we'll wrap up with Fiona.
This has been really fun. Again, like all of you have said, I feel like we're all in the same place right now, which is really cool. But I recently experienced a bad business experience with other people, and I've been feeling kind of sad about that. And I think I forgot that people aren't always they're authentic and running their business with integrity. And so this has been really nice to see other people, whether same industry, not same industry, choosing to be authentic and vulnerable and sharing themselves and being okay with being imperfect, but also having integrity as well. So it's really nice to meet you guys and hear all the cool stuff you're doing. It's just encouraging for me to keep doing what I'm doing because other people are doing it too, I guess. I didn't think they were.
Okay, well, it's hard to go last because you guys said everything. But I would say my biggest takeaway from this call is just feeling very inspired. It's inspiring to know that, again, we're not alone, that everybody's kind of going through the same challenges, also the same wins, and also just knowing that there's a community out there that, you know, that is supportive, and just knowing that there's always going to be people doing what you're doing in different ways, which is really also another thing that is so inspiring about, you know, everybody's different journey. So that would be my biggest takeaway.
Well, I appreciate each of you. Thank you so much for taking this time here. I'm inspired and in awe of each of you here. Outliers, take the time to continue to follow everyone on this path here. And then if you want to come and join us, we're playing inside the Outliers Edge Guild, which is our free community. You can just come in and be inspired, meet other people, and just keep letting things grow from there. I am honored by your presence, each and every one of you, and I am grateful for you. Thank you so much. And here's the thing, be you on purpose. Journey on.